What is up, guys? It is Quinn here, and in this video, I'm going to be going through my Week 11 start sits at the quarterback position. So as always, listing every fantasy relevant quarterback as either a start, sit, or a fringe play. If you guys enjoy, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And then if you guys do have any fantasy questions, I'll respond to everyone who comments down below. But let's just jump right into the Thursday night game where we have the Titans taking on the Packers. Now for the Titans, I just feel like Ryan Tannehill is not going to be fantasy relevant in your typical 12, 10, 14 team leagues. So he's going to be a sit here. For the Packers, Aaron Rodgers is someone who has been pretty rough to own for fantasy football basically the entire season. I actually do have him as a fringe option here, with 4 teams on bye and all 4 of those quarterbacks, typically being startable or at least fringe plays week to week. I think Rodgers can get the bump to a fringe option. He's coming off of his best game of the season. Didn't have a ton of passing volume, 224 passing yards, but threw for 3 touchdowns, 19.4 fantasy points. I do believe that was his best scoring game of the season. We also saw Christian Watson have a big breakout, so potentially, a new solid weapon for Rodgers moving forward. And then this also is a good matchup. The Titans have allowed the 5th most points per game to the quarterback position, and they also have allowed the 5th fewest to running backs, so it may push the Packers to be a little bit more run heavy here going up against the Titans. Now moving over to the Sunday slate, starting it off with my Chicago Bears taking on the Falcons. And for the Bears, Justin Fields, obviously a start. We've just got to talk about this dude because he is absolutely breaking fantasy football. Like, he's putting up production you're just not supposed to see at the quarterback position. The last 2 games, 42.7 points and 39.4 points. Over the last 4 weeks, he has put up at least 23 points in every single one of those games. And in the last 5 games, he has carried the ball 12 plus times in 4 out of 5 of them. He has another solid matchup here against the Falcons. Now, obviously, Fields isn't going to be someone who's rushing for 150 yards and a touchdown every single week, but the rushing volume is there. He's been very efficient as a passer. Like, it's not like he's been a bad passer. He did have the pick 6, but then he comes out the next possession. I think it was the next possession, and then, breaks off like a 70-yard rushing touchdown. I think he's going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback rest of season. That may honestly be underselling him. I do think his schedule gets a little bit tougher, but the dude is just a monster on the ground, and he doesn't even have to be giving you a ton of touchdowns. Like, if the guy's running for 80 yards in a game, like, he just has to maybe get 1 score, and he's giving you starting production. So Fields, locked in start. For Marcus Mariota, I have him as a fringe play. On the season, he's the quarterback 16, and like I talked about, we do have some fantasy relevant quarterbacks who are on bye. It's Brady, Geno, Trevor Lawrence, and I know I'm missing one team, and I'm not sure who it is. Sorry if you're a fan of that team, but I do know they have a fantasy relevant quarterback. So for Mariota, going up against the Bears defense, who over the last 3 weeks have given up 49, 35, and 31 points, I think he's a high-end QB2 this week and a solid streaming option. Then in the next matchup, we have the Panthers taking on the Ravens. For the Panthers, PJ Walker's out, Baker Mayfield in. Not great for fantasy, not really great for anything here. Baker Mayfield definitely going to be a sit. For the Ravens with Lamar Jackson, should be getting Mark Andrews back. Continue to fire him up as a high-end QB1. Then in the Browns-Bills game, I think a pretty clear start and a pretty clear sit. Going to be sitting Jacoby Brissett, and then obviously we are starting Josh Allen. Then we have the Commanders taking on the Texans. For the Commanders, I have Taylor Heineke on here. I guess it's possible they go with Carson Wentz. I probably lean towards them playing Heineke. I think he is going to be a sit, but in terms of someone you want to watch play football, the dude is just crazy exciting. For the Texans, definitely sitting Davis Mills, who just has not really done anything so far this season fantasy-wise. Then we have the Eagles taking on the Colts. Jalen Hurts unfortunately loses Dallas Goedert, but I still think he's someone who is going to be a great start moving forward. On the other side with the Colts, I think in select matchups, potentially Matt Ryan could be a fringe play. I just don't think this is one of them going up against the Eagles. In a divisional matchup, we have the Jets taking on the Patriots, and I don't feel comfortable starting either of these guys. So sitting Zach Wilson and sitting Mac Jones. I think we've got 2 strong defenses here, offenses that have been up and down throughout the season. So, just kind of fading the QB position in that one. Another game with some rough options at quarterback, the Rams taking on the Saints. If Matthew Stafford clears concussion protocol and plays in this game, I think he's definitely going to be a sit. Semi-tough defense in the Saints. Cooper Kupp having surgery, definitely going to be missing this one, going on IR. We're going to see Matthew Stafford probably have Tyler Higbee as his number one target. Just gross stuff going on for that Rams offense. So definitely someone who's going to be a sit. And then on the other side, I do not believe the Saints have named their starter yet. I'd like them to go with Winston. I just feel like Dalton hasn't really been it. Winston probably gives the guys around him a higher fantasy ceiling. But regardless of what guy they go with, I'm probably going to be sitting both of these guys. But in terms of someone who has fringe, potential moving forward, I do think Winston has a better shot at that. We have the Lions taking on the Giants. For the Lions, I have Jared Goff here as a sit. Not a great matchup here against the Giants. He wasn't really able to capitalize on the strong matchup against the Bears. His production has fallen off as of late, so he is going to be a sit for me. For the Giants, I have Daniel Jones as a fringe play. Honestly, very close to just being a straight-up start. He has been the QB11 in points per game so far. Now, QB11 sounds pretty good. He is in that 16 point per game area, so it is a very crowded spot. We also see the Lions have allowed the most points per game to the quarterback position. Fields definitely didn't help that case last week, putting close to a 40 bomb on him. But I do think Daniel Jones is a very strong fringe play this week, probably just like a back-end QB1 option. Then a divisional matchup between the Raiders and the Broncos. Just not overly interested in either of these quarterbacks. For Carr, pretty tough matchup here against the Broncos. You have Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow on injured reserve. So you basically, you've got Devontae Adams, and that's about it. He hasn't been great on the season. Just not a situation I want to mess with here with Derek Carr. And then for the Broncos, this is a pretty strong matchup here for Russell Wilson. Raiders, I believe, have allowed the second most points per game to the quarterback position. But we also have Russ coming off of a great matchup against the Titans and just to not capitalize on it. With what we've seen out of Russ so far, I just don't want to be relying on him basically at all for fantasy. Next up, we have a solid game between the Cowboys and the Vikings. For the Cowboys, I have Dak Prescott as a pretty strong start. In his 3 games since returning from injury, he's put up 12.3, 25.4, and then 19.2 points. So some solid production there. This is also a pretty decent matchup here against the Vikings. So I like Prescott this week. For the Vikings, I think per usual, Kirk Cousins is going to be a fringe play. Not a great matchup, but I think you can always, trust Kirk to finish in that QB 10 to QB 14 area. And I don't think anything changes this week. We have a divisional matchup between the Bengals and the Steelers. I think we have a pretty clear start with Joe Burrow and then a pretty clear sit with Kenny Pickett. Then on Sunday Night Football, we have the Chiefs taking on the Chargers. For the Chiefs, obviously Patrick Mahomes has just been an absolute monster. Continue to start him as a high-end QB1. He's honestly someone I definitely missed on coming into the season. I think he was like my QB5. I had all the mobile quarterbacks ahead of him, and he's just shown a crazy high ceiling without a ton of rushing stats and without being surrounded by, elite weapons. So Mahomes continue to fire him up as a great play. And then for the Chargers, I have Herbert here as a start. Now, I will say if he doesn't have either Williams or Keenan Allen, then he'll be a fringe play probably at best. But if he gets one of those guys back and they look like they're going to, be 100%, then I do think he's someone you can start in this matchup. And then Monday Night Football, final game of the week, the 49ers taking on the Cardinals. I have Jimmy G here as a fringe play, probably, in the low-end QB1 area, high-end QB2 option. Didn't have a crazy game this past week, but the weapons are there. And then for the Cardinals, I'm just going to continue to fire up Kyler Murray as a strong play, assuming he is going to be healthy and ready to go in this one. I think he's dealing with a hamstring injury, so he missed last week. Obviously, if they go with Colt McCoy, I think is the backup. If he's playing, definitely not starting. If Kyler plays, he is definitely going to be, someone you want in your lineup. So that is going to wrap it up for all the Week 11 matchups. As always, if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you want to check out the other start-sit videos, running backs, wide receivers, those were posted yesterday. Tight ends will be out today also. So thank you guys for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.